Hey folks, gonna wait for a minute or two here while people trickle in before I get started on this live stream. If you join, say hello because I can't always see if people are on or not. Let's see here. I gotta set it to live chat. That'll help. To start, while people join here, I'm going to go ahead and say once again thank you to everyone who helped donate to make my being in this live or this E3D ToolChanger beta possible. Thanks again to E3D, Duet 3D, Phyllis Schroeder, and all the individuals who contributed to help me get into this. Hey, Greg. Thanks, Greg, for letting me be in the beta. It's much appreciated. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at Murph here at the end of the month. Hey there. So I don't actually have a lot planned for this. I'm going to install a couple bits and pieces I was missing last time. I probably won't do a whole lot here. I have a cold again. Been sick off and on here lately. So just going to do some of the last little bits of wiring and that kind of thing. And I might put the side panels on, we'll see. But mostly this is kind of a wrap-up video at the end of the last one. I showed it was moving an XYZ. I could home and everything, so that's going well. I'm pretty much done. I wanted to kind of wrap up the live streams. I'm not going to live stream every time I go through and work on this. So I wanted to do kind of one last wrap-up video and give my thoughts. So I'll do that while I tinker here. And Greg, absolutely. Wish I had a little more feedback to give you. I probably will once I get the configuration and stuff going. So I'm just going to work on this a little bit while I chat here. As far as the size comparison, the bed is a 300 by 200 bed on the ToolChanger. The height is a 300, I believe, millimeter printable volume. So a little less space than the Railcore 300ZL. The most common question I've gotten lately is how many tools will we be able to fit on a Railcore? I don't know because I don't have a 300ZL to compare to. I'm hoping for 4. I'm going to have to make use of my neighbor's printer to verify that. Because he has a 300ZL and I do not. I only have 250s. So here I'm putting on this one printed part that I forgot to print previously. And so I had not been able to put on. So I'm just going to bolt that on real quick. I got to find, it fell on the floor. I got to find where I put all my nuts and bolts for this. I've literally not touched anything since last time I was working on this. There's that. Here's all my ToolChanger parts. Keep them in handy box there. Hey, John. So I'm hoping we can fit 4 tools on the 300ZL. I'm not committing firmly to that yet. It was designed and finalized well before we ever saw a hint of the ToolChanger. So there's, it wasn't planned for that. I'm hoping we can do that, but no guarantees. It'll certainly support 2. There's no question of that. It's just 3 is a bit of a question. Give me 3 bolts here to hold this. Oops. Yeah. I can tell you my Railcore 250, the smaller of the 2, would sit entirely inside the build volume of this this ToolChanger. It's quite a bit bigger than my 250s. That doesn't really say how it compares to the 300. There's one. Find the other bolt here. So some overall thoughts about the build of this. And I'm gonna directly compare it to the Railcore because it's what I know and what I've been working with of late. This being a fully machined, engineered from the ground up product, obviously adds to the cost, but it also eases the build. It's better aligned from the start, especially because they ship this top U plate fully intact and pre-built. There's no question this is a very smooth build because of that, and overall XY alignment is easier. I've yet to see how the Z axis holds up compared to R3 lead screw auto leveling. I think we might have a slight edge there, just because the auto leveling does take care of itself. But overall, I would say this is actually an easier build, even though it took me ages. I'm slow at building things. Don't judge it based off of my times. I think this is actually an easier build than a Railcore in a lot of ways, even with 4 tools. So that's one thought there. Got to find a grub screw here. Oh, that's right. I ran out of grub screws. Not sure how I ran so short of grub screws, but I was like 4 or 5 short, Greg. But I have a bin of them around. It's right here. I can borrow from that. So, you know, yeah, I do think the build is probably easier for this. Not drastically so. And maybe we'll learn some lessons for that for a future Railcore revision. We'll see. Grab a grub screw here. I'm bad at talking and thinking and doing at the same time. I can only do 2 at once. There we go. No, I haven't put the panels on yet. That is true. And that'll definitely increase the rigidity. I demoed that in one of these videos. I'm not saying this is a faster build. I just think it's an easier build. And it's not tightening down. Why? Did I strip the grub screw? Apparently I stripped out a grub screw. Great. Yeah, the panels on the Railcore are pretty fiddly. They don't look too bad on this, but I haven't done it yet to say. Maybe I'll put some on today. Well, I'll deal with that later. I just totally stripped out that grub screw. Awesome. Good times. Let's see here. We can move some of this. I did give some feedback to Greg. I'm not sure if they're going to include the side panels with the ToolChanger motion system, or if they're going to leave those separate. But you know, since they do add to the rigidity, I would say they should be part of the sale, and I believe they're going to be doing that. I think that was the consensus. The XY motion system is pre-assembled. Yes. Although I did see a number of people were having to retension those, and I've not done that yet. Pull all this stuff off. So I haven't seen how the tensioning on this goes to compare to the rail core. This is definitely a lot beefier machine overall, being two huge aluminum plates and those big extrusions. Yeah, so the rail core wasn't, oh, that's good to know, Greg. Build volume on this is 300 by 200 by 300, I believe. I know it's 300 by 200. I think it's 300 in Z. Yeah, Richard. So the rail core was not planned around the tool changer. It didn't exist when we built the rail core. There's no question it'll probably cost some Z to put the tools on, and we're going to have to get creative when we do so. But that said, I think we will be able to do it, and get it. I know we'll get at least 2 tools on. I'm optimistic that we'll get 4. So here's my handy little tool plate cover. They put a nice little inset you can print separate and drop that in there. I just got to get all the wires kind of mushed around here to get it in place. There we go. Of course, that's going to fall right off of there when I go to find the M3 bolts to put that on. Overall, I would say comparing the rail core to this is really an apples and oranges comparison. Yes, we hope to get the tool changer parts working on the rail core. That's why I'm in the beta, of course, as I said before. But that doesn't mean that there won't be some compromises for it. You know, the machines, I say this a lot, every machine is a series of compromises. One of the big ones on this is cost. The rail core is $1,500. Even adding in tools, you're still going to come in $1,000 under what this is going to cost at least. If we had known the tool changer was coming out, we may have changed the design quite a bit to account for it. But you know, hindsight and all that. So like I said, maybe in a future revision we'll do something that's a little more tool changer friendly. Yeah, not much else to say there. Every machine is a series of compromises. So this was obviously designed around the idea of the tool changer and has some advantages for the tool changer because of that. I do think it'll be very interesting to see how our 3 lead screw leveling compares when doing multiple tools. If it's a hindrance or an advantage. There we go. One of the things I'm really curious about when I get started printing with this is to see how the XYZ alignment of each tool head works. I have not seen that yet, and so that'll be pretty interesting to see. I'll lower the bed here. If you remember in the last build video I did, I somehow lost the standoffs for the bed. I have some brass standoffs I could use, but I needed to order an extra tool plate so I can do some experimenting. So I have some standoffs coming for the bed, so those are on their way. Yeah, the bed is, it's 200 by 300 on this. So certainly smaller dimension in XY. Let's see. So I got that buttoned up. What other parts do I have here? Greg, I'm not sure where this part goes. I don't have my manual open. I'd forgotten to print it last time. That probably goes right here underneath this, doesn't it? No, that doesn't really make sense. Seriously, where does that go? It's got to go where one of the straps are. Oh, right. So this is the optional tool detect switch, which I don't have the switch for yet, so I'll leave that off for now. Abby, if that's how you pronounce your name, yes, you would have to do quite a bit of modification to pretty much everything about the rail core to make it 2020. Some people have talked about it. It hasn't happened yet. We'll see if anybody actually does it. Let's see. Other thoughts? If I were to do it again, I probably would have went with the Titans instead of the Bontecs. Of course, I'm not printing yet, so I can't say that for sure, but the Bontecs don't fit quite as well here. I may have to modify this printed part to pull the PTFE a little bit further out of the way, because when the tools dock, it does nudge the PTFE a little bit on some of them. This one in particular seems to. So I don't know if you can see, but right there, the fan is actually hitting the PTFE because of where the Bondtech is. You can angle the fan to get around that, but that's kind of a wonky solution to it. Because if that fan turns on the heat sink, it's going to not drop off the tool, which would be bad. In one of my earlier videos, one of these tools was bouncing off pretty easily, and it was because the heatsink was being smacked by the fan. One solution to that would be to flip the fan, because on these two it doesn't happen, because the fan, the heatsink fan is on the right. There is no sensor to say which tools are docked. I thought that would be a kind of interesting solution, to have a sensor, not just the one on the tool changer, but one on each tool to say, yes, there's a tool in this position. And if there's not, if there is, don't drop anything off there. And if there's not, don't try and pick one up there. But there's nothing like that. There's no switch on this side to say this tool is docked or not. It would be tough to do, I think, because there's a limited number of ports on the Duet and the DuX5, and this is using most of them. I'm not going to go through and do 100% of the wiring today. I will talk about the PT100 boards. So in my last video, I had an issue where I couldn't install the PT100s because I didn't know what I was doing. Turns out that was a pretty simple explanation. They use genuine Highlands on the E3D, which is nice, but adds to the cost. The rail core uses, in the kit, linear rails from Xyltech. I am sure if you wanted to, you could contact Project Red and say ship it without linear rails and order your own matching linear rails off the bill of materials links. They're all the same. I think they're 450 millimeters, MGN 12, straight from Highwind yourself, and get the same quality of rails on this. They do use an MGN 9 for their X. We use MGN 12 on everything. Otherwise, pretty comparable. Actually, they use a pretty beefy rail on Z. It's like a 15, MGN 15. It's gigantic. Ours are all MGN 12. So what Greg let me know on the PT100, if you recall last time I was trying to figure out E3D's connectors for the PT100 are the Molex connectors, a 4-port Molex connector. The PT100 board, if you look, has screw terminals here, but right behind the screw terminals are 4 jumpers, well, 4 jumpers on the board total. And what Greg let me know is you just pull the headers off of those, the connector off of the jumpers, and plug the PT100 wires direct into those. So that's one thing I definitely wanted to note before I moved on, is that's how those connect. And then, as I pointed out in the last video, the 2 PT100 boards stack like that. And there is a standoff you need to make sure to install before you plug those in. MGN 12W on Z. That is a beefy Z rail. That is for sure. So I'll plug this PT100 sensor in, and I didn't do any checking on where things plug in. So like I said, the point of this video is not to do the wiring and get it all buttoned up. It's more to share some closing thoughts as I get that, the last bits in. I still have to wire up the bed to the SSR. Got to find the documentation on that. Let's see, what else do I want to do today? Kind of rambling on here. Oh, the white wire from the tool changer head is for that tool changing switch, right, Greg? What port do you plug that into? I'll have to try and dig up a micro switch. I may have one that will fit. Those do not. I should have ordered a micro switch when I ordered the rest of the stuff for me this week. I don't have any extra. E0. Okay, I'll plug that in E0 now. I forget where E0 is. I'll plug that in later. So, remaining steps for me to do on this, I gotta just plug in the rest of the wires, the PT100 wires, and the fans. I double checked the fan connection polarity, and that was all good, so I can plug those back in. Yeah, that makes sense, Greg. I need the standoffs for the bed. I'm waiting on those. Those should be here, I think, Monday or Tuesday. My order just shipped, so it should be here pretty quick. And then I got to bolt on the side panels, and I should be printing. So when I get a print going, probably won't live stream, but I'll record the first videos of this printing and share those. And give some further thoughts as I start learning how to pick up and drop off tools. But overall, I think the live stream sessions for this build went well, and I'm glad I did them. Just at this point, the live streams, waiting for myself to not have a cold and have the time with my job and everything to do a live stream is slowing things down. So that's why I'm gonna just start working on it as I can instead of live streaming every time. Is there anything anyone would like to see up close on the tool changer before I wrap up? Like I said, I'm not planning a long video or a detailed build today. Oh, Greg, I'm not sure what you were intending for the spool holders, the rods for the spool holders. I would include those because those aren't an easy item to procure unless I'm just totally missing something. So I had those turned by my buddy Wade on his lathe, but just to give a little extra shoulder to him. So I had him make those, but I would include those too because that wasn't a straightforward one. As well, the aluminum banding. We found some of that, but it's not common here in the US for the length we need. Everything's like 10 millimeters too short. You're not going to include the spool holders. Okay. So those will be a tricky one for people to get a hold of, would be my guess, unless I'm totally missing something. Because you need an M3 tapped on the end, right, to attach it. So anyway, you said all side panels would be included, so that's a great thing. I'm sure people will appreciate that. What else? It's not wired yet, Greg. I'm not ready to print. So E3D does have a complete config for picking up and dropping off tools that they sent to those of us in the beta group. I'm lagging behind everybody else, again, due to my new job primarily. But I know Renee and Michael Hackney especially have gone through and made some improvements and some feedback on those pick up and drop off scripts for each tool. And I plan to contact probably Renee and see if I can just get his config and run with that to start. But all of that config is provided from E3D, so that's handy. Yeah. Oh, I got you, Greg. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, you could easily print those. That's fine. I wanted shiny aluminum ones. Trying to think what else. Yeah, I totally overthought the spool holders and wanted nice turned ones. I was looking for like a wood dowel that was the right length, but that's all right. Trying to fit this PT100 board on here, and they're kind of tough to push in. I don't like putting that much pressure on the Duex 5 or Duet. There we go. There's one PT100 board installed. Now I gotta find the little plastic standoff for the other one. I dumped that out in a bag somewhere. Like I said, I didn't have a lot planned for today's live stream. I just wanted to kind of wrap up with some final thoughts here. If anybody else has any questions, otherwise I'm gonna go ahead and call this one and call it done. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting this printing, and that's kind of why I'm wrapping up the live stream the way I am. Is I need to just be able to work on it when I can work on it, and stop waiting for the live streams. So that's why today's is just kind of a here's where I'm at. Here's what's coming up next. Most of the work is done. Greg, is there a diagram for connecting the bed out there? That was one thing missing in the documentation. Pretty straightforward, but something to make sure is there. Oh, it's probably in the bed instead of in the tool changer documentation. It's probably on your site with the where the bed is sold. Didn't think about that. So yeah, the remaining steps for me, I'm going to connect the fans, connect the PT100s, connect the bed. I'll bolt the sides on. I have some brass standoffs I may use for the bed, and I'll try and get a printing here for myself, and at least moving and make sure everything's going well. I did the initial movement test last time, and that was all good. So yeah, I can show you my rat's nest of wiring before calling it good. If you want to see all of the detail on the wiring, it's a total rat's nest right now. I'll clean it up with more zip ties. But I have all the gritty details on the wiring in my last video. So there's the Duet and Duex 5. The blue and yellow cables here are the PT100 connections. The red and black are the fans. So I got to connect those, and then everything is wired up, and I can clean all this up and tidy it up pretty nicely. It looks like a mess, but if you watch my last video, the wiring really went together pretty well. There were a couple points the documentation could use some work, but I gave all that feedback to Greg. And that's mostly just, photos and a little better. I would do a wiring diagram, take the E3D one, and change the diagram to say, this connector goes to this port. Kind of like we did for the rail core. But that's final documentation stuff that Greg has said they're working on. So I'm sure that'll improve then. There's the power supply, nice little connector for the IEC inlet, and then the SSR sits right under here. And I just got to wire that up, so it'll connect from the bed port to the SSR, and then to the bed itself are these 4 wires here, red and blue wires. So the wiring was really pretty straightforward. The cables are all very nice. It went together really well. Oh, one other thing I'll note, all the parts on my rail core were printed with PathIO, or not on the rail core, on the tool changer. Were printed with PathIO. They're a little rough here and there, but it was one of the very early builds of it. So I have been playing with that slicer for a while. The IEC was one of the later ones I did, and it came out very nice, sliced with PathIO. So definite improvements from the early ones to the IEC and the later ones. So that was pretty cool to see. They're making some big gains there, and I know PathIO was really geared towards tool changing, and some unique ideas around that. So it'll be cool to see that evolve as the tool changer itself kind of falls into place. But if you haven't tried that beta yet, I would encourage you to, especially if you plan to use the tool changer later, because I know they're looking at some unique features that'll improve that. Anything else anybody would like to check out or learn about before I call it today? I can give close-ups of anything else. All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this this live stream early here. Like I said, it wasn't going to be a full build. It was just kind of my final thoughts on it. It's a very nice machine. It's very nicely put together. Documentation. Greg has the notes I would give on just you know, a couple improvements here and there, mostly pictures and some diagrams. It went together pretty easy. I'm satisfied with that. Looking forward to getting the side panels bolted on. I'll get the last of the wiring going, and we'll see how soon I can get printing here. I may toss the brass standoffs on it and see if I can get it printing in the short term until the other ones get here. I forget what the material for the other standoffs are, but Greg warned me that the bed can transmit heat down into the aluminum, so and it also, you know, the brass will expand as it heats up, so that would be a negative. Probably like Delrin or something. Oh yeah, so that is a question for Greg. I know he said he's working on the standalone tool changer. Last time I asked him about it, he said he did not expect that would be done before MRF, which is at the end of this month. So do not expect to see the standoffs are PPS. Do not expect to see a rail core with the tool changer on it at MRF. When I was talking to Greg about it, he specifically asked me to wait to work on the tool changer for the rail core until he had that done, because changes will happen from this to the universal one. So I'm patiently waiting until Greg gets that done. That said, I do have ideas on how I plan to fit the tools. They do mount nicely to the 1515 rail. Oh, thank you. Hey, Matt. The tools mount up nice. Speaking of Matt, 713 maker, I'll probably be working with him to do some adapter plates to make things fit between the toolbox and the rail core if printed parts won't work. So one way or another, we'll have a nice, you know, solid fitment for that. One of the interesting challenges will be to put the extruders and mount them on something. It's going to have to go kind of above the electronics box. So that'll be interesting. The space will be very tight for the rail core, but here's one of the reasons why I'm not real concerned. If you look on the tool changer, a good bit of the space of each tool is taken up for the PTFE arm here, so between each tool. So without the PTFE arm there, you could actually get these tools closer together across. My plan then would be to have the extruders on the outside of the printer, because we don't have the volume to have them on the inside anyway. By moving them to the outside, that arm would no longer need to be there. I'll modify this printed part, which I may have already started on. Modify that a little bit so that that arm isn't there, and I think I can get away with having them a little closer together. And by my math and Fusion and playing around with my Railcore 250, that should give us room to fit 4 tools on the 300. It'll be close, but we should be able to get it done. There's no question we'll fit 2 tools on, which solves the, you know, the bulk of the requirement for a lot of people. You know, they want a support material and they want a print material, or they want a TBU and a PLA, or, you know, a lot of people just want the tool changer for dual material or a bigger nozzle and a smaller, you know, a detail and an infill or something like that. So I think having 2 would solve that. 4 would obviously be ideal, and I think we can get that done. So if you want to do high temp materials in a rail core, depending on how high temp you mean, you can put a top on. We have a top we're designing, or you could build your own. It's very easy to put a box top on them, and get an internal ambient heating from the bed and such to about 50°C, pretty easy. Not active heating, but just let it heat up, and it's fine with that. When you go much higher than that, if you want it enclosed and really heat up the interior, I'm not sure how well the HDPE will hold up. There are some printed parts you're going to want to be concerned with. When you get over about 60, 65°C, your belts start to have some problems. So I'm not sure overall that the rail core is going to like an 80°C internal, heated chamber type thing without some serious modification or thought. And I'm not sure Core XY, because the belts have to be inside that, is really ideal for anything you're going to want to get that hot. You're running outside the range that Gates tells you should run at for your belts, which makes any Core XY with a heated chamber a challenge. Not unique to us. The biggest thing, though, would be HDPE. I have no idea how it'll handle a heated chamber. But it's pretty easy to get those HDPE panels swapped out. We can do them in acrylic. 60°C is right at the limits of both the HDPE and what Gates says for the belts. So maybe. But I don't know that anybody's done it. But we can hook you up with acrylic sides if you want them. Matt could mill some out of aluminum if you want them. Volunteering Matt there a little bit. We can make them out of plywood, whatever. Lots of side options will be available. Yeah, there you go. Matt just said expanded side options will be available later this week. And probably you'll see some of those show up at Murph. Kind of dropping a secret from Matt there. So once you start doing some of that, you can get it higher. I forget the exact rating on the belts. Those are the #1 component that is not rated for high temps on the printer. Everything else, thanks to Matt and Wade, all of the printed parts are pretty much available in aluminum now. You'd want to, obviously you'd be using a Bowden setup anyway with the ToolChanger. You wouldn't want to go direct. You'd want to go to some sort of like an aquarium pump or an air pump for your cooling, so you could pull cool air from outside to do your layer cooling if you needed it. You'd have to get creative, but I think it could be done for sure. Yeah, I think that covers that. Trying to think what else I can go over on this, or especially if you have more questions about how I plan to move the ToolChanger to the rail core. Like I said, I'm holding off on really jumping into the development of that because Greg asked me to. But I have looked at it enough to say it's going to work. It'll be possible. It's going to take some adaptation and some time and thought, but there's no showstoppers. There's nothing about the implementation that's going to make it impossible. The most interesting thing will be to see what Greg comes up with on that universal ToolChanger head. This component is going to be redesigned for mounting to other printers, and I'm waiting on that from Greg. And then once I see that, I can figure out how do we fit that onto a rail core y-axis. And I'll tell you, if you have a rail core, whatever Greg comes up with for this, it's going to be a complete redesign of that y-axis. Probably only the belt retainer clip will stay. It'll probably be a milled plate, 1/4-inch plate from 713 Maker to attach this to in some form or fashion. But I got to wait for Greg and see what he comes up with that. So that's the answer to your question there, Kevin. Is I suspect there will be a Y plate that Matt will have to mill to adapt this. I mean, there will be a printed option, but you're pretty much going to want the milled option. So one of the most common questions I get about making this work on the rail core is, if you picture, let's see here, can I spin my camera around? Hopefully you guys can see this. I'm going to flip the camera around here and show you my rail core, which is dark because my light fell. So with the 2 lead screws on the left side there, it's going to be a challenge to fit 4 tools on that left side, which is where our hot end currently sits. The plan will be to flip our y-axis, which you just take the front and back X carriages off the machine, spin at 180 degrees and reattach them, and now the tool faces to the right, and we can pick up the tools off of this right side of the printer, which is where the single Z-axis is, and it should make the wiring run shorter. All the wiring will be on the I'm sure this video is terrible. All the wiring will be on the electronics box side for all 4 tools. We're going to have to come up with some way to mount the extruders here. Yeah, so all the tools will actually dock on the right side of the rail core where the single Z-axis screw is. Nope, so the tools will actually mount onto the 1515. This one has a halo, you can see, and the plan is to mount them. They should mount very nicely right on top of the halo. If you don't have a halo, there will just be a 1/4 inch spacer to go under the tools, so they're universal to all rail cores, and we don't have to customize the parts for each of them. And yeah, as soon as I start developing it on the rail core, my plan is not to hide any of the tool changer stuff. I haven't posted on it because I haven't done anything on it. It'll all be public. People contributed to the tool changer beta, and so I will definitely be giving that information back as I go. But the overall goal is to absolutely make this possible with as few parts required to be changed as possible. That's my design goal. I don't want people to have to buy whole new side panel sets. I don't want people to have to buy, a whole bunch of machine parts or throw out things they have. Obviously, the y-axis has to change. That we don't have a plan for that, and I highly doubt there's any sort of adapter I could come up with to fit what Greg's going to make onto our y-axis. So whatever your Y carriage looks like today, whether it's the printed one or the aluminum one, that'll change. There's no question. But overall, the rest of the printer should essentially stay the same. So yeah, the next step and the next question is, once we see what that looks like and how much change has to happen, there are a few things I can envision. Like I said, there's going to have to be some way to mount the extruders. That's going to be an extra part, printed or maybe a milled HDPE piece. I don't know what that'll look like. Once we figure those things out, absolutely, I would expect all of the tool changer stuff to be available as I purchase this, and it will fit on your rail core. And then you just buy the individual tool docks from E3D for however many tools you want on it. Or at least that's the goal. And it would just be an add-on to your Railcore purchase at time of purchase. Or if you have a Railcore and want to adapt it, it will be a kit you buy to add to your existing Railcore. That's the plan. Now, should we ever do a new revision of the Railcore, call it a 2.5 or 3, I could see that happening. Taking some lessons learned and also preparing it better for the idea of a tool changer. Not out of the realm of possibility. It's not something that's actively being modeled or anything right now because we're still waiting to get it working in Railcore 2. But that kind of traction could happen later, that modification to come up with a Railcore that's better sized for the tool changer. But it's not anything, it's not like, oh, I shouldn't buy a Railcore right now because it's coming out in 2 months. There's nothing designed yet. Greg, so far, how are the beta results? I think Greg's still around. Let him answer that. I can tell you some things I've seen from the beta group. Early on, there were a lot of instances with trouble picking up the tools and that kind of thing. As people progressed and learned how things went, it's gone very good. From my side of things, from what I've observed, watching the feedback, we all nitpick little things about shipping or the build or G code for doing the tool swaps, but overall, it's worked very well. I've not seen a lot of major complaints. Nobody that has gotten it running has had major problems. They didn't have to, there's no major heads up I got other than like things like use Captain tape to make sure I don't short out my servo connector. That's like the biggest warning I've gotten so far. Everything else, I didn't have to buy a whole. Well, there was the PT100 thing. I had to go buy the PT100 sensors because thermistors that shipped with it didn't work. I think they're shipping thermistor or PT100s with all of them now to work around that. But yeah, overall, everything's gone very smooth. It's one of the smoothest betas I've seen. It's a big learning curve. There's a lot of changes to your mindset on how you print and how you use the machine, how you build the machine, because there's 4 hot ends. But everybody did really well with it. The beta went very smoothly, and they added a new group recently, and they had the benefit of some of the feedback and improvements that we had from the first round, and most of those guys are up and running already. So I'm by far the slowest, I think, but yeah, people are doing very well with it. Greg and Sanjay and everybody at E3D, you all did a great job with it. Yeah, so you do need, for 4 tool heads, you do need 2 PT100 boards. You need 4 PT100 connections. The problem with the thermistors is actually just the cable is too short from the thermistor lead. Got a dozen of them here. The little nice blue wire lead on the thermistor was too short to make it from the hot end to the board for the tools. Greg, as a point of feedback, I would love those to be longer anyway. The thermistor leads are always just a little bit short, and when I try and zip tie my thermistor and my heater cartridge to the top of the oh, that's cool to know, Greg. So the production machines won't use those PCBs and will work with thermistors. So ignore all of that. But that said, Greg, I'd love to see these leads be a little bit longer anyway. because when you try and zip tie them to the top of your hot end to keep the wires from, as a strain gauge, you end up zip tying right around that connector, and it's annoying. Or at least I do. So that would be feedback in general for your thermistors, is make those wires just, 10, 15 millimeters longer. Hey, Country 3D, I'm good. Chris, cool. Everybody's showing up when I'm trying to wrap up, which is fine. I'm happy to hang out and talk about things. Just to let you guys know, I'm not trying to get this running today. It moved in the last one. I can home X, Y, and Z, even though my bed isn't quite attached yet. I can do that, Greg. I'll send that feedback there. And that's a common thing. I see it a lot in our IRC channel for the Railcore as well. Everybody wants those thermistor leads a little bit longer. Yeah, I didn't realize Tom was doing a live stream until just a few minutes before I jumped on this one. I had already announced the time, so I stuck with it. So no, this live stream was really just to recap my thoughts on being in the beta. And let people ask specifically about adapting this to the Railcore, or any questions with the ToolChanger too. The Mosquito, I have a Mosquito on order now. I had held off on getting one for myself for quite a while here, but I've gotten enough questions about them lately, and enough people have asked me about them that I decided it was time for me to go ahead and get one. So I ordered one on Friday, actually. So I will be getting that soon. I haven't used it yet. There are a lot of people using it. If you jump on our Discord or into our Facebook group, those are the most active places. A lot of people are using them. There is a tool wiping thing. I never figured out quite how that fit on yet. I got to look at the pictures. I don't even see where I put that print. I'll put that on too. There is an STL for tool wiper. I'll find it here. Never quite figured out where it went or how you use it. So that's one of my things I got to figure out. I don't have Discord open right now. I'll put that on my Twitter feed right after this. There's the STL for the tool wiper thing. I don't know how that works yet. I haven't put it on. I don't know if I need 4 of them. Maybe I need 4. I don't know. I have the Nozzle X. Hey, thanks. There's the Discord link for the Railcore Discord. Everybody feel free to join us there, even if you don't plan on getting a Railcore. It's nice to hang out anyway. I have a Nozzle X. Testing for it has been going fairly well. It's held up to everything I put through it. Filament does not stick to it too badly. The nozzle opening is nice and round, contrary to rumors on the internet at one point. It is definitely round if you take a nice close-up picture with a camera. So far, the Nozzle X is definitely better than the hardened steel, the standard hardened steel nozzle. I'm not sure it's quite as good as a brass nozzle for PLA, let's say. PLA just seems to flow a little better through a brass nozzle. But I'm still, feeling out I increased the temperature a little bit and cooling and all of that. But what's really nice about it so far is no filament that I've put through it, which includes PLA, PETG, carbon fiber PETG, carbon fiber PC+, glow-in-the-dark PLA, TPU. Nothing has really stuck to it yet, which is really nice. The little bits of crud that have stuck to it, once I bring it up to temperature, they brush right off. The hardened steel nozzle always had crud built up on it, and eventually was just, you know how those go. The hardened steel always ends up with all that gunk you just can't quite clean 100% without prying at it with a screwdriver or something. This has not had, the Nozzle X has not had any buildup like that, so that's been very good. It also doesn't seem to have quite the temperature drop that the hardened steel nozzle does. When I hit it with full cooling on the nozzle, it doesn't drop quite as hard. So yeah, so far so good. I'm not ready to declare it fixes every 3D printing problem out there type thing, but so far it's been very good. Jumping back up a bit to Chris on your next machine and waiting on the tool changer. So yeah, that's exactly where the rail core is. Greg, I've said this a couple times. He asked me to hold off on designing the tool changer adaptation to the rail core until he finalizes the universal tool changer carrier. And so I'm abiding by that and not doing any adaptation until I see that. So I'm in the same boat as you. Now, that said, as far as I know, the dock side of things is not changing. Greg, is that correct? The tool dock portion will remain largely the same, but the tool changer head is where you expect the changes to occur at. But the tool themselves and the docks will essentially stay. You said the PCB won't be there, but essentially this portion won't change. At least that's the way I took things so far. I'm not sure if Greg is still there or not. Oh. Yep, so just this tool changer head is being redone. And will that change on, just curious, is that change going to apply to the E3D as well, or is that only the head is being redone for the universal ones that'll fit on other printers, but yours will continue to use this design? That's my own curiosity. See if Greg replies. Just knocked over a side panel. Well, anything else I can answer about this or the rail core tool changer adaptation, rail core in general? Oh, I see. You're going to a different servo. Okay. So yeah, it sounds like that'll change for both the production units of the tool changer and for third-party ones. Trying to think what else I can cover here. One last thing I do want to say, or one thing I did want to say during this, is if anybody is coming to Murph, Greg will be at Murph, I'll be at Murph. Project Red will be there. 713 Maker will be at Murph. I know Venturi 3D, Chris will be there. Of course, Simi CNC and Prusa and Lulzbot. If you guys don't come to Murph, you're really missing out. Just want to encourage anybody on the live stream that you can make it. I will absolutely be there. I live a mile away from the place. Drive by it on a regular basis. So Steve is going to try to be there. He had knee surgery, so let's hope his knee heals quickly so he can make it out. I'd love to see him there. Oh man, Chris, you're not going to be there. I was really wanting to see you and talk about your new design. Maybe you can ping me offline and give me a preview. But yeah, anybody on the live stream, if you don't know what MRF is, MRRF, your head's been in the sand or something. But absolutely try and make it. It's such a cool thing. Do I see a problem with the added weight of tool changer? I don't expect one. Um, we run a stepper motor and an extruder on our y-axis now with pretty much direct drive. That's a lot of weight, and I haven't seen any impact from that on the rail core. You know, as long as you keep your extrude or your acceleration at a reasonable speed. We run like 1K, 3K, 1K jerk, 3K acceleration, and it's fine. Honestly, the tool changer weighs a little less than that, so I think it'll actually be less moving mass on our y-axis because you go to Bowden, so you don't have that stepper motor sitting out there on your y-axis. Richard, there are lots of videos on my channel of the rail core complete printing. I've posted a video of I think 200 millimeters a second actual speed with 1K jerk, 3K acceleration. Posted videos I can print down to 0.02 millimeter layer heights. Not for your first layer. Beds don't like that. Print like a 0.05 first layer or something. But yeah, the rest of the layers, 0.02 is fine if you have that kind of time. So there's lots of videos on my channel, and others are popping up reviews of things like that as well. I will say 200 millimeters a second, the parts are not pretty. It'll be interesting to try with the nozzle exo, because one of the things you run into at high speeds, the plastic doesn't have time to stick the layer below it, and it peels back as the layers progress. So maybe the nozzle exo will improve that. Not sure. And then cooling, when you print that fast, getting it cooled so it doesn't curl is the other challenge. Low layer heights actually go well with fast speeds because of that. You can cool the smaller amount of plastic faster. But yeah, there's lots of videos out there of the rail core printing plenty fast. Lots of example prints. My print gallery's out there. Join us on the Discord, that kind of thing. So. All right. Any last questions on the rail core? Things we got coming up for the rail core. We got doors are now available from Mandala Roseworks. He has acrylic doors that look pretty nice for him. We have the concept for the top to fit on it to help enclose it. We just gotta execute that. Some last details on it and get that out there. More aluminum parts all the time, which can be good or bad. You don't have to use them, but some of them are pretty cool. I'm running Halo on mine. I like that. Trying to think what else. No major news on the kits other than the shipping lead times are coming down. If you haven't seen them, the mag beds from 713 Maker are awesome. So yeah, lots of things coming out and in progress. But like I said, come see me at Murph, chat about my rail core, watch it print, hang out. Looking forward to that. And thanks everybody again who donated. Thanks to E3D for letting me be in the beta. Thanks to Philistruder and Duet for their help with it. And yeah, I think I'm gonna. Oh, there we go. There's another thing I didn't even necessarily know. Some new options on the mag beds will be dropping very soon from 713 Maker. So if you have a rail core and want a mag bed, there's going to be some new options available for that soon. That's cool. Yeah, I think I've talked enough. Oh, the rail core prints ABS great, especially if you put the doors on it, or I just put a piece of cardboard in front of mine when I need to print something that doesn't like the cooler temps. Once you block the door on it, or the front opening, the rail core does great with things like that. And once we get the top on, it'll be awesome. But yeah, lots of sample prints and ABS off the rail core, especially in our Facebook group. So cool. Well, I'm gonna wrap things up then, and probably in a little bit here get back to wiring, and I'll pull up the guide and get the wiring done, and hopefully I'll get some prints turned off of this thing in the next couple days here. And thanks again for everybody for watching, and I hope it was of value. So I'm gonna wrap up the live stream. You guys all have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.